Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today, I'm going to review a Marvel comic from 1983 called Supervillain Classics, subtitled Galactus: The Origin. Now, this comic was reprinted in 1996 under the name of The Origin of Galactus, but originally it came out in 1983. And I couldn't find a whole lot about where this comic actually comes from, because the credits page says it's by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but that there is supplemental material by Mark Grunwald, John Byrne, Ron Wilson, and Jack Abel. Now, in its 1983 form, the entire thing only has art by Jack Kirby, so the supplemental material must be story-wise. But other than that, all I can see is that this story was written by Stan Lee. And I've wanted to review this comic for about a year now, because one of the few comics that has come out of Marvel over the last year that actually has any merit was Silver Surfer Black. And in that book, what happens is Silver Surfer gets thrown back to the origins of the universe, and very little exists at that time. But what he does run into is the symbiote god and its planet, as well as Ego, the living planet, and the incubator of Galactus. Now, when I read it originally, I said to myself, wait a second, this throws off the entire story that comes from Supervillain Classic number 1. But after having gone back and read Supervillain Classic number 1 and the origins of Galactus as written by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the new story of Silver Surfer Black actually fits in pretty well. There's a little bit of play between the two stories, but the new story of Silver Surfer Black actually draws from this comic itself. So that's why I wanted to review this for a while now, because I actually love this comic. I don't know if many of you would love this comic, but partly why I love it is because Fantastic Four was the first comic that I ever seriously collected. I hunted down issues of Fantastic Four from the late 70s, early 80s, and my Fantastic Four collection goes back to, I think, number 60. But anyways, let me give you a summation of the story itself, besides it being the origin of Galactus. Here we go. The cosmos dies, succumbing to universal decay. But as all matter plunges into a final blazing cauldron, one planet has the means to struggle to survive. The planet of Ta. Gallantly, the citizens of Ta send an almost indestructible ship into the eye of this storm. There, the consciousness of the universe itself grants to a sole survivor the power to pass into what is to come. What emerges from the other side is the being known as Galactus, the devourer of worlds. So, as you can tell from the story summation, although Galactus is the central figure of this story, he actually seems to be in the background of this story. Because the story is, he was part of the universe before this one, and when it collapsed in upon itself, he was able to pass from that universe to this one. It doesn't exactly show you how. If I remember correctly from my other Fantastic Four books, I think it's through the Big Bang, but I'm not entirely sure. So he is the only survivor of this previous universe and has passed into ours and was given the power to survive through the consciousness of the universe that existed before this one. And the reason why he did so was quite simple. He, as part of this civilization of Ta, wished to preserve something of his planet so that it would survive. Now, as I said, I don't know if a lot of you would actually like this. I give this book 9s all around. And the thing is that it is very strange to give this book 9s all around. Well, first of all, it has Jack Kirby art, and if you don't like Jack Kirby art, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to like this book. But the story is what grabs me. And the thing is that it's almost entirely world building. There's very little dialogue. It's almost all exposition and world building. And when you say that, a lot of people would say, that doesn't make a good story. But this does make a good story. Although, now that I think about it, it may be Jack Kirby that was doing the story as well, because it is a very Jack Kirby way to do things, because he's concentrating on world building. But in this book, it's so heavy that the main character sometimes gets lost in the background. And I actually want to cover a couple of comics from Jack Kirby where this doesn't work, but here it does work. And I think it does work for one of the reasons why comics actually used to be interesting and are no longer interesting to people. It's because the writer knows his audience and respects his audience. Because again, this breaks the mold of a Marvel comic. A Marvel comic should have action. It should be character-centered. It should pull you in with the dialogue. But this book has your sometimes cringy, Kirby-esque dialogue. This book has very little action, and this book doesn't exactly draw you into itself. It draws you into the world that it is creating around this character and into other stories, because there's even 2 separate subplots within this one-shot issue that's just a normal-sized comic. Because those 2 separate subplots, one of them is what happens to the people of the planet which is the first one devoured by Galactus. They become a galactic race known as the Wanderers. Another one is there were several people on this spaceship with Galactus when he came through, but they were all dead. And when he gets into this universe, he ejects a pod with their dead bodies and they just fly off into space. Now, I want to know about these subplots, and that is the exact point of why I love this story. I want to know about what is going on beyond this book. It ties in so well with Fantastic Four lore and with the backstory of the Marvel Universe itself. I want to hunt down stories about these subplots and about Galactus and about the Fantastic Four, which isn't even mentioned in this book. And that is respect for your audience. That is knowing and respecting your audience so much that you are able to give them a story which you know will pull them into this world, even though it doesn't have your typical Marvel story structure, because your author knows what people who read Marvel want, and he teases you with extra stories so that you want to come back and read more and more. This is the masterful storytelling of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. You don't have to sell your comics by making Marvel a lifestyle brand and spreading people all over the place to talk about things. What you have to do is create a story that respects your audience so much that the imagination of your audience becomes an integral part of the story itself. It allows the imagination of those readers to run wild, and in doing so, prompts them to seek out what you are going to do next. Anyways, as I say, make comics better by reading better comics. And in my estimation, this is a beautiful comic. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.